So today we're talking about reciprocal relationships. And the idea for this talk came out of two things. That the first one was I was at a family gathering and there was somebody there, a member of the family, who I hadn't seen in a couple of years. And, for the most part, we're friendly and everything's fine, but there's probably some unfinished business, some unfinished stuff in there. Anyway, we were just hanging out and everybody's like kind of quipping back and forth and saying silly things and, life is happening and stuff's going on. And all of a sudden, there are things coming out of my mouth before my editor had gotten hold of it. And it was a little sharp, little jokes with a jab. Like, and it was funny, like how it came out. And I was watching myself thinking, ooh, that was, it was like, I don't like sarcasm. It's not something I like. And it was sarcasm. It was biting sarcasm. And afterwards, I kind of sat, like, because the person who I'd said these things to kind of disappeared. And I was sitting there thinking, where did that come from? Why did I say that? I hadn't felt that weird desire to be sarcastic in a long time. Like I would almost have told you that I'm not sarcastic because I really don't like it. And yet these biting words came out of my mouth. And anyway, so I was pondering this and thinking, wow, that's weird. Then I was reading David Bohm, and David Bohm is my favorite quantum physicist, as I've mentioned 100 times. And I was reading, I actually have his book here. This book is really heavy, but it's called The Essential David Bohm. And I was reading this book a few days later, and he got talking about the role of reciprocal relationships in science and how confusing this is in science. Because in science, we really want to believe that all things are separate. That I can say, okay, here's one thing, here's another thing. There's an action that this took on that, and now we know why that happened, right? This cause and effect, the effect of gravity. Like we want to know that this is what happened and we can scientifically understand it. So this is a huge thing in science. Almost the disconnectedness of two things until an action is taken, and it's almost like that's our equation. This plus this equals that, period. Easy peasy. So David Bohm was talking about the idea that very idea is flawed. And in quantum physics, you might have heard something called entanglement or spooky action at a distance. And this is a real curiosity amongst scientists because they've realized that two atoms at huge distances apart are actually affecting each other all the time. They are entangled. And this is very confusing, and it doesn't line up with that classic physics model that says these things are independent until, gravity hits or the sun hits it or something. They're independent. And entanglement says, no, they're not. We are always being affected by everything else in the universe. This is mind-blowing. Like, this isn't a little bit like, wow, that's confusing. That's upsetting in the scientific community. Because how can we ever have a proper experiment? How can we ever control the variables, right? How can we ever have a clean scientific experiment? But of course, this idea is what birthed so many other sciences like quantum physics, chaos theory, nonlinear systems theory. There's so many scientific branches that are trying to understand the fact that the universe is not so mechanistic, they call it. It's not so simple. We aren't just individual pieces, inert, hanging out, not affecting each other. There's even a Latin saying, I'm going to type it here, called ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus. And this is a foundational concept for science, economics, everything. And what it means in English loosely is all other things being equal. So we say in science, well, we can assume that this will do this to this, all other things being equal, ceteris paribus. And this is what's wrong. This is what is actually a foundational issue within science. And I first came across this idea of ceteris paribus when I was doing research for my book, What If You Could Skip the Cancer? Because, I'd had this, miraculous healing experience through cancer, if any of you guys haven't read that book. But then it was quite a while before I wanted to write the book because, I never knew I was going to write a book until I started writing it. Because I didn't understand what had happened. According to the science, I have a math brain. I like science. I like order. I like structure. I like equations. I like rules. This fits in my brain. I like it. And so the idea that I healed the way I did, or the experiences I had, made no sense to me. They did on a deeper level, but I didn't know how to merge those worlds. I didn't know how to merge that soul knowing with the structure of the 3D world. So I started doing research about why people heal. Why do some people have spontaneous remissions and other people don't? And this led me into this interesting application of quantum physics, of chaos theory, and understanding that in the human body, when you do one thing in terms of health, it isn't just, I just took this drug and now this is going to happen, ceteris paribus, all things being equal. Because all things aren't equal. As human beings, we have an infinite number of things affecting us. And anything we do for our health is not acting alone. It doesn't act in a vacuum. Whether we take this medication, we take that herb, or we do this exercise, or we change our diet, that is affecting us, but so's our relationship. So's how much sleep we're getting. So's how much, connected to God we are. All these things are connecting us. So if we isolate to a singular point and say, this is all that matters, I'm not going to look at anything else, we have to be wrong. It's incorrect. So this is really, really interesting to me. And the reason I want to talk about this today is because I think as we walk through life, I want to look at how this relates to relationships, how we act around other people. Because I think in our journey to finding self, it's really confusing why we act this way around that person and this way around that person. Like, why do I feel like, I have multiple personalities some days? Because I'm just so different all the time. And then the question becomes, which one of those am I? Am I the person I am when I'm with my lover? Am I the person I am when I'm with my parents? Am I the person I am who I'm at work? Am I all of those people? Am I none of those people? Like, who am I really? So relationships are really interesting because, I don't know about you, but I think I must have almost an infinite number of personalities depending on who I'm with. Like, it's really fascinating. So what David Bohm talked about was the reality is that every single thing, every single atom in the universe is connected somehow. Some are connected, the effects of this connection on this is less than, another. But, it's still an effect. And that's really important. And he said, not only does this affect this, this also affects this. Well, if I'm affecting you and you're affecting me, and then something happens between us, how do we lay blame? How do we even describe what happened? Because you'll say, yeah, but you shouldn't have said that. And the other person's like, yeah, I know. I don't know why I said that. And it's like, and I'm not, and this is I'm not talking about this in order to lay blame. That's not it. It's about observing the phenomena and just being aware that together this gets said. Isn't that weird? Right? Like that's weird. And so, for example, let's look at the concept of love. I remember, I don't know who, someone said this once. They said, it isn't that we love someone. And I'm not talking about children or friends. I mean an intimate other. If you love someone, it isn't that you necessarily love that person, but you love the way you feel when you're with that person. Or you love the way that person makes you feel. Because to understand that when I feel love, this being feels love, right? That's all I've got. I can't actually project onto you or anything else. But if I eat chocolate, you know why I love chocolate? Because I like the taste of chocolate. I like the way my body feels when chocolate goes in my mouth. I like the way that feels in sensory response. I like the sun because I feel warm when I'm in the sun, right? So I love the sun because I love the way I feel in the sun. So now you imagine you're with another person and you love the way you feel when you're with them. This is really different. Or to say even that I don't love you. What I'm really saying is I don't feel love when I'm around you. I'm not flowing in love when I'm around you. In fact, I feel angry when I'm around you, and I feel sad when I'm around you, and I feel alone when I'm around you. And I feel like less than when I'm around you. I feel like a loser. I feel like whatever when I'm around you. Right? That's actually not feeling love. But again, it's about what I feel like. So it's this reciprocal relationship. It's the connection with this person. They sometimes say that the opposite of love isn't hate, because that's still reciprocal, right? The opposite of love is apathy, or the opposite of love is a disconnection, because there's nothing reciprocal. I mean, there's something, but we're going to cut it off and not allow it as much as we can, right? It's a fascinating thing. It's just fascinating to think of the people in our lives and know how we feel when we're around them. Because someone might say, no, but you don't understand. I really love you. And you say, I don't feel loved when I'm around you. And this is interesting because we are connected. Think of family. Family is really interesting because sometimes I think that when we're born into certain families, that we must have history together. However we understand multiple lifetimes or reincarnation, or however we understand that, sisters come in, siblings come in, parents come in, and it is like you are preloaded with this person already. It's so interesting. Because, I've seen, even so, my sisters, I have two sisters. From the time they were born, they were just oil and water. Why? Why were they oil and water? What's that all about? Why do we meet someone, or maybe one of your parents remarries and you instantly don't like this person. And it's almost like they've brought in someone from the soul tribe from a previous relationship in a previous life or a future life, or however we understand it. And we've got history with this person because we don't like them on sight. We don't just not like them. What do we feel, right? We have a feeling about this person. We have a reciprocal relationship with this person already. And when I'm around you, I feel angry. You haven't even spoken, and I'm already angry. Or I'm sad, or I feel oppressed, or I feel something. Why? Why do I feel that? It's kind of interesting to really understand that, okay, we're affecting each other here. Weird. You know? It's just really weird. And then sometimes, we can grow up in a home. We had a meeting last week, and one of the ladies was saying that, she grew up in a home where there was a lot of anger. And she said, it's so weird, I haven't lived in that home. I haven't done that in so long. And then all of a sudden, I go and visit my siblings, and I'm instantly angry. I'm instantly, furious. And I'm acting in weird ways. And then she leaves and she goes back to her own home and she's like, what happened there? Which to me feels a bit like what happened with my family member. And I walked home going, where did that come from? So it's an interesting thing to ask ourselves. Is it historical reciprocity? Is that what's happening? That these are past lives and we're working out stuff we can't even see? Is it stuff we simply learned in this lifetime, in that home? And it's almost like, I always think that humans, that we're so plastic. They talk about neuroplasticity, that our brains adjust all the time, that it's constantly learning. And in a home, we're very plastic. We're like plasticine, right? We will adjust and change and morph, and we become certain puzzle pieces that fit, that work. And then what happens is we go out into the world and we keep finding people that fit our puzzle piece until we don't like it anymore. And we realize, whoa, I got to break this pattern. And I don't know, we meditate and we do cool things and we have amazing experiences and aha moments. And suddenly our puzzle piece changes and we start to become ourselves. And then we start finding different puzzle pieces that fit us, our true self, not this altered self that was created in our childhood. And so, there's that too, right? That as soon as we meet that puzzle piece that feels like us, it's like our bodies just remorph into that. And we have this reciprocal relationship. It's fascinating to me. Like it's something that I'm obviously currently pondering a lot, how much we change. I'll have that I remember I had this one man, a wonderful man I was with for quite a while. And when he would be with me, he was like this. I don't know, it's like he was tall. And I don't mean that in a weird way, but he was like taller than I was. And he had these like bedroom eyes. And he had this beautiful sense of himself. He just was this lovely, caring, and wonderful human. And then a friend of mine met him out in the world, somewhere else. And she was like, he's not like that, Katrina. He's angry. He's an angry person. And he's not that tall. What are you talking about? And I started having this realization that people actually change around each other. Like we actually physically change. We come into the presence of someone who really deeply loves us, and we can physically change. We alter. We don't even look the same. It's so fascinating how much I think this reciprocal relationship is. That who someone is in your presence may not be the same person that they are in anyone else's presence. This is fascinating to me. Like just fascinating. It was to the point that when I was dating, when I would meet someone, I'm like so entertained by people, right? And I'd be like, oh, how's it going? Blah, blah. And it was like guys, men they would kind of build, I don't know, they would change right in front of my eyes. And they would become these incredible, and I don't think it was just me being delusional. I think they changed. And then we'd become friends on Facebook, and they'd have these angry Facebook feeds. And I was like, who's that guy? Like, I've never met that guy. I've never laid eyes on that guy. So it was really interesting. That was probably my first real experience of how people change so much. I also think there's something magical about this, that, like when I first met Jim, my teacher when I was sick, that I loved who I was around him. Like when I was in his presence, I think I became me. It's like I tapped into my soul being. I don't know, it's like I got a glimpse of who I was in his presence. It was fascinating. And I never saw him out in the world. I don't know what Jim was like in the rest of the world. I only knew him in that teacher-student relationship. I mean, we're friends now, but it's the same thing, because if we meet for lunch, he kind of looks at me and he goes, hey, how's it going? And he's just all sparkles and whatever. And instantly I become all sparkly and like, so, like, I'm not sure we have any idea what each other looks like outside of any of that. It's so interesting. The other thing, I have so much just to talk about this. The other interesting thing about this, and it comes back to the quantum physics, the double slit experiment, which I've talked a lot about here, and I won't go into great detail about it. But the experiment is basically that they shine light at a wall where there's two holes, and I'm really going to simplify this because that's not the point. And so they were trying to figure out, was light a particle or a wave? And because the way that when they shone the light went through like a wave, it went through like a ripple, and they kind of interacted on the other side of the screen and all that. And they're like, yes, light is a wave. So they thought, let's measure it and see when it goes through this hole or this hole. They put a measuring device there, and all of a sudden the wave, the light went through as particles, like almost like little tennis balls hitting the back screen, and it stopped acting like a wave. This is a foundational, and I'm really going to fly over this because that's not my point. But this is a foundational question within quantum physics, is this reciprocal concept that the very act of observing something changes not just what it's doing, but it changes its nature. It changes whether something is a particle or a wave. Like this is mind-blowing, that the very act of observing changes the nature of the particle. So of course this is why they started to realize in science that the intention of the scientist would actually change the outcome of the scientific experiment, because of this reciprocal relationship between us and not only each other, but all the elements around us. If I actually want an experiment to go a certain way, that desire will skew what happens in the experiment. So this is where they started doing double-blind studies, because they realized that they could not separate this reciprocal relationship between us and all the elements around us. So now you imagine this in your relationships. As parents, for example, what do we want to do? We want to watch our children, right? We want to make sure they're okay. But what are we doing? If we focus too much, and I'm not talking about caring for young children, I mean watching the lives of teenagers and grown children. What are we doing? If we're watching, measuring, are they able to act as the waves that actually they are? Are they able to act in their infinite potential? Or the very fact that they know we're watching them limits them to particle behavior. It limits them and it creates them a simpler version of them that isn't their full potential. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, like, or even a partner? Imagine you're in a romantic relationship with someone and you are hyper focusing on them. That the very fact that we are hyper focusing on them is limiting them. They are changing their actions. They are changing who they are because they can feel us watching them. Like, this is a huge deal. So it's like, okay, then how do I have an intimate relationship with someone? How do I love my children? How do I care? And it's a fascinating philosophical question that says, do I just love them? Do I trust that they are also connected to God, connected to the universe, connected to their own divine guidance? Do I trust that? Or do I believe that if I don't keep an eye on them, or if I don't focus on them to fix them, or if I don't focus on them, whatever, like, this is a philosophical question that we each have to ask ourselves. And to think that the reciprocal relationship of us watching them could actually harm them. And suddenly they don't know why they're feeling so limited. They don't know why they're acting in this way. And so here's the other thing. The degree of reciprocal relationship depends on how empathic we are with other people, right? So for example, I'm going to use my son in his example. He's going to love that. But my son is super empathic. Like he's just a walking, I mean, he's a giant, but he's kind of the girls in high school even, they could kind of smell it on him, and they would come to him for a hug. And they would, kind of sit with him, and they would cry, and they would tell him all of their problems. And he's a great hugger, right? Like, great hugger. But he would feel them. Like he was there. Well, the interesting thing about him is he's very sensitive to the reciprocal relationship between, him and me, or him and my dad, or his dad. And what's fascinating about it is it's not that we're controlling parents, but he's so aware of us, whether we're controlling or not. It's a bit of a challenge. So the most interesting thing is, for some reason, the universe decided that he should go to school up in Thunder Bay, which is in northern Ontario here. And it's a long way. Ontario is a huge province. And from where I am right now, it's 18-hour drive to get there. And this is also where I felt the opposite of this reciprocal relationship, the incredible freedom I believe he felt just not being watched. And again, it's not that we were watching. It's just that nobody's getting a constant update. No one's sitting around for Sunday coffee finding out what the next thing is. There is a crazy freedom to not checking in with anybody. Like it's almost like, it makes me feel like when I travel alone, because I love traveling alone. I love traveling with people once in a while, but I love traveling alone. There is something so weird. We have to get over it at the beginning because we're so used to checking in with the other person. Like, whoa, look at that mountain. Isn't that awesome? What do you think of that? Where do you want to go? Like this, there's this weird thing. We're accustomed to this reciprocal thing. And as soon as you're traveling alone, you start to have experiences with what you're experiencing. And the very fact that no one is observing your experience of it, I don't know, you dive deeper. You have a different experience. There's a freedom in your own experience. Like, because so many people say to me, oh, I could never travel alone. And it's like, it is such an important joy to feel the freedom of experiencing something just yourself without anybody watching. It's almost like traveling without a camera. Because when you travel and all your intention is you're going to take great pictures to put on Instagram or show the family, you are two-dimensionalizing everything we're experiencing, right? So imagine you travel alone. You don't have your phone, you don't have a camera, and you're just sitting with the mountain. It's an entirely different experience. Like, entirely. And maybe what this does is it opens us up to the reciprocal effect of you and the mountain, right? That becomes the dominant reciprocal effect. So this is the last thing I want to talk about is there something wrong with this? Is there something wrong with this reciprocal relationship? Is there something we need to, I don't know, like, am I really that person who is snippy with that person, with the family member, or is that not me? So here's the thing. So in science, we look at it and we say, well, there are some things that don't seem to have any effect on each other. Some things this affects that, some things this affects that, and some have really strong reciprocal relationships. So in our mechanistic mind, in that mind that we were trained in, one might think, well, if I want to understand the true nature of that thing, of that element, we have to see it in isolation. That's the key. If I want to be able to truly write down what this thing is, the true characteristics of the thing, I need to invoke ceteris paribus. I need to invoke isolation, so then I'm not getting confused by how it's affected by others, right? Like, that must be the answer. So, and we can imagine the parallels in relationship, right? Well, who am I alone? Who am I in meditation? That must be who I am. So I'm going to isolate myself, or I'm going to stay away, or whatever, right? But now imagine that. So it's an interesting question. Like, is that true? Do I actually understand the nature of a thing in the universe in isolation? Is that going to tell me what that thing is? And so my sense right now, obviously this is a question, is I think it's only a very, very, very small part. It's a very small part, if it even is a part. So it's really interesting, for example, in a lot of native language, a lot of native languages don't have a lot of nouns. They're very verb oriented, which is why it's very hard for, our English language to understand, or even people who are raised speaking, I'm going to use English as an example, people who speak English have a hard time understanding the culture of people who speak native languages, because language forms our experience, right? How we describe the world around us is based on the language we understand. So if you look at a language that is based in movement and based in verbs, that thing in isolation isn't interesting, right? That thing in isolation doesn't even exist until we see it in movement, until we see how it fits in the whole, how it affects others. It doesn't even have an identity until we understand it in relation to others. So imagine this. So imagine you find an acorn. So an acorn is, for anyone who doesn't live in places where there's oak trees, is the seed of an oak tree. And in Canada, oak trees are kind of our magnificent trees. It's kind of like the American redwood. And so an acorn's just this tiny little seed. If you look at an acorn in isolation, do you know anything about an acorn? Do you know anything about why it's here? Do you know anything about its purpose? Do you understand its role in the ecosystem? No. The more we isolate the acorn, the less we know about it. Bury that acorn in soil. Moisten the soil. Heat the air around it to a certain temperature. That acorn changes and grows into an oak tree. But without the reciprocal relationships of the elements around the acorn, we never know what an acorn's really all about. If you imagine a puppy and a child, and you isolate the puppy and the child, put them in two separate rooms, and you observe the puppy and you observe the child, do you know anything about puppies and children? Nothing. That puppy will probably go to sleep or whine. The child will sit there, maybe rock. It won't even know what to do. And then you put the puppy and the child in the same room. Suddenly we will see the nature of puppies and children. But we'd never know until we observe the reciprocal relationship between them. And then suddenly all the puppiness is showing and all the childlike joy is showing. How important is that? Like, how important is that to really understand the nature of us? I remember there's this man in town here, and he was my children's drama teacher in high school. And if you just met him on the street, he's a pretty interesting guy. But he's a genius. He was an absolute genius. I can't, I mean, you know, you meet geniuses and then you meet geniuses. One time, my intuitive friend I was telling you guys about, her daughter also was in his drama program. And one time, it was the beginning of the year, and the kids were all kind of, uncomfortable with each other, teenagers, drama class, this is so weird, it's so stupid, I don't know. And they were all on stage, and they were supposed to be a family. But of course, they're teenagers and they're kids, and they're in grade 9 and they're uncomfortable. So they wouldn't act connected. They wouldn't actually act like a family because they just weren't there. So this drama teacher goes up and says, okay, hold on a minute. You guys are in the wrong spot. And he puts his arms around them and pushes them like a group across the stage. Okay, I want you guys all to stand there. And they're all like kind of falling all over each other, and they're like this. And then he sits down and he looks at them and he goes, no, that's not right. And he gets up and he moves them across the stage over here. And then he does this like 5 times. And by the 5th time, they're practically got their arms around each other like they've known each other for 100 years. This was his genius. But could we see it without the drama kids? Without the context? Without the need? Right? It is life. It is our reciprocal relationships that show us all the million facets of who we are. So it's just fascinating to me to be able to walk through our lives and observe our friends, our children, our parents, our colleagues, everyone, and watch ourselves and learn something from us about ourselves. And not in judgment, just in, the one thing I really learned about from this reciprocal relationship with this family member where I got snippy was, wow, I have some unresolved stuff with her. I really need to look at that. And I'm so glad it happened because, and the interesting thing is it isn't just me, it happens all over with her. It's not just something between her and I. But there's stuff for me to learn there. It's even interesting if you imagine this effect of the world around us on us. Even if you imagine a water molecule, think of how it's affected by the temperature of the air around it. This is a reciprocal relationship. How you observe a water molecule is 100% dependent on the temperature in the room. It can be ice, it can be snow, it can be water, it can be mist, it can be a gas. It's all water, right? It's so cool. And I think the coolest thing about this, one of David Boehm's points of talking about this was, it was actually within the context of understanding the infinite nature of the world. And part of the problem with the mechanistic idea is that the mechanistic idea of looking at the world assumes that everything's finite, that it's this, and here's the effect, it's done. And his point, this was the context, was in an infinite world, it's impossible. And then you double that and understand that even all those infinite particles are connected, right? Like, mind blown. But this I believe is our expansion. This is the expansion that we're going through as humans right now, is going from this limited reality that we've been trained up in, that we've lived in for centuries and millennia, that we even think we can understand all the pieces, and we think we can understand the effects of everything. And we can't. And to stop desiring it, And it's not about not loving learning. Learning's awesome. Expanding into this infinite universe, that's super fun. But to actually allow ourselves to flow through it, to not ever force ourselves into a particle state that it's like, no, this is me. I'm stuck here, whether I like it or I don't like it. I'm here. It's like, no, there's more. And we don't have to understand it. We just have to go, whoa. Like, it's like literally living in the wonder of life, right? Like living in awe. It just changes everything. And we become infinite in all relationships. Like, to even imagine any relationship you look at and you realize that that person is being affected by your presence and you're being affected by their presence. And now anything that happens between you, you kind of can't help but have a little smile inside going, wow, this will be an interesting interaction. Because we don't know. It's a chicken and egg thing. Did you say that because of me? Or did I say that because you said that because you knew I knew that? Or relationships become hilarious. Okay, I'm going to put my glasses on. Empathic care, my holistic. So true. It's interesting, even like working with people, so I do energy grids with people, or I have one-on-one sessions with people. And it's the reciprocal relationship that creates something valuable to be said. It's not me. I can only put so many, if we imagine ourselves separate, and you're over here and I'm over here, you can contribute a couple things and I can contribute a couple things. But unless we kind of drop the guards and allow for the reciprocal relationship, nothing real will happen, right? As long as we pretend we're separate, nothing interesting will come of it. There has to be a dance. Relationship is our main spiritual practice, right? Relationship's so interesting. And I think that's why I really am intrigued by this, is because so often the way we describe relationship struggles is in this disconnected way. Well, I said that, and then they said this, and then I said that, and then I said, and it's like, yeah, but there was a context. There was a whole pile of emotions going back and forth when all these things were being said. Like, we can't just take the words out of context and understand anything, and oh, it's so interesting. I will do almost anything to avoid conflict. How do you deal with conflict? When we meditate, one of the big reasons we meditate is to create a witness mind inside, to create a clear space inside to be able to observe what's going on. So whenever we have conflict, whether it's conflict inside or it's conflict with other people, we have to have created the visceral memory of a quiet space inside, which is why we practice meditation. We practice so that when we're in conflict, we take a deep breath that feels like meditation, and it brings us to this quiet space inside, and we can observe what's happening. Because somehow we have to break the cycle of whatever the conflict is, because it's a cycle, right? It's something that's happening over and over again. And we need to be able to have that presence of mind to observe it. And then we can make a choice. And oftentimes, if, for example, avoiding conflict, if you're super empathic, if you're super connected to other people, imagine how strong this reciprocal relationship is with everyone around you. So of course you avoid conflict, because every time you meet someone, you're swirling with them. And to also understand that, this is a chicken and egg problem, that sometimes people are attracted to the fact that we will get involved in their drama, that we will fall into that. Oh, I'm having such a hard day, and you wouldn't believe what this guy did to me, and this, and you'll just like dive right in, right? Because for whatever reason, that feels like love, or it feels like caring. And I think I've been really blessed by a lot of people in my life who were able to have that witness space. So no matter how dramatic I got, they would kind of just observe me and say, so what are you going to do? Well, it's not about what I'm going to do. Didn't you hear what I said, what he did? It's like, and? So for us to develop that inside ourselves, to know, okay, first of all, I'm heavily involved in other people. Second of all, the other big thing about, because I just saw that you said being a listener, but it drains you. It's great to be a listener, but you exist too. You as a human being exist. And if you're listening to someone and you're getting tired, I will guarantee you that the other person is repeating themselves and you are not saying something. There's something you need to say to this person. Maybe they won't like it. That's okay. But there's a truth you're not sharing. It's almost like we become exhausted by pressing down all the truth that we actually want to say. We're pressing down our responses in that moment. Because as soon as you start speaking your truth, one, it will change the dynamic of the conversation. They may not want to talk to you anymore because they want someone to commiserate with. But there's something powerful about really speaking your truth. What if you can't speak your truth because of who the other person is? Like me and my mother. I always trust that truth is just truth. Truth isn't about the other person. Truth is connected to God. Truth is reality. It's not a It's not a judgment of another person. It's just truth. And, if I tell you what my truth is, there's not a discussion about it. It's not an argument. Because I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. And I'm not talking about what I think of you. I'm talking about me. It's just truth. And if I'm in a difficult relationship and it comes up that way and I have to share it, then that's just the way it is. Like, that's the whole thing about Gandhi. Gandhi's whole concept of satyagraha, standing in one's truth. This is this beautiful alignment of your God self and your physical self, your seventh chakra all the way down to your first chakra. This is my truth. This is where I am. This is my perception of the universe. That's it. It's not a discussion. It is my perception of the universe right now. Right? Am I putting on CD the money is weird talk? On CD? I don't even have anything that can burn a CD anymore. Oh, uploading it. I will. I'm way behind on uploading talks to Insight Timer because I'm teaching, I have a yoga teacher training program beginning November 21st. And so the lion's share of my world right now is creating all the content for that. So I'm a little behind on uploading the audios to Insight Timer. But in a couple of weeks, it's going to be flooded. You're going to have the money. I wonder if that one Money is Weird talk is up yet. I'm going to have to check. I feel like I might have edited that one. Anyway, I'll look. It's on YouTube. Oh, my voice. Thanks, E.T. Yes, that's right. It is. Chaya, if you go onto my YouTube channel, thank you. The Money is Weird talk is on there, but it will come. It will be here on Insight Timer also. And yes, there's still open spots for the yoga teacher training. Yeah. The last one was about love on Insight Timer. Ah, yes, that one just went up, right? Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. This has been awesome. And thank you guys so much for your donations. It's so awesome. This was super fun. I was really looking forward to doing this talk. I was really intrigued by the whole concept. So so thank you so much for being here. And I will see you guys later.